Welcome everybody to a new episode of Conspiracy 420, the Son of Sam Chronicles with Denaro. This is Denaro right here. I'm RockerMike, Rob Rossi to my left, and today we're talking about the fourth Son of Sam shooting, which was the January 30th, 1977 shooting involving John Diel and Christine Freund. This happened by the Forest Hills train station in Queens, which is a very kind of exclusive area known as Forest Hills Gardens or Forest Hills Estates. Just to give a little overview, and then Carl will come in with some good discussion on this.
What we're looking at here is the steps of the Long Island Railroad. Approximately right where this car is where John Diel and Christine Freund were parked a little bit after midnight on January 30th, 1977. The two of them had spent the evening here in the neighborhood, having a couple of drinks, catching a movie, which I believe was Rocky.
Yes.
Right? They went to see. Yeah, it was Rocky. And they came back here. It was a very cold evening. John Diel drove a Pontiac Firebird, and they were warming up the car, sitting in the car, and right there, somebody came out of probably this area here, which was slightly more wooded than it is now, and shot 3 shots into the car. 2 of them hitting Christine Freund, I believe, in the head and the shoulder, and 1 shot bounced off the windshield. John was not hit.
Right. So actually, John dropped Christine off from the movie theater,
Right.
and then drove around. It's all one-way streets because of the railroad tracks running through Forest Hills. So it took a long, circuitous route, but eventually he parked the car in front of the entrance to the what would that be? The south
Side of the tracks, right there where the main steps to come down from the station.
Exactly.
They did have drinks at
the wine
gallery, which was next to the movie
right.
theater.
And that was before the movie theater.
Okay, before the movie.
Before the movie. And the reason we know that is apparently Berkowitz was in the wine gallery on his way out.
As Diel was coming
in, and they actually bumped into each other, and they apologized to each other, and no one really thought anything of it. Certainly John didn't.
Yeah. Not until after Berkowitz was apprehended.
Not until afterwards. But at the time, it was just one of those New York moments.
Wow.
Yeah. And so they went to the theater, went to the movies, and walked back. The movie theater was about 3 blocks from where
3 blocks and just north of the train station.
Right. And they got in the car. It was a cold night, and
very cold.
Yeah, it was a very cold night. He started the car up and wanted to warm the car up before they took off. And as Mike mentioned, they were going to an Oaks Club, I believe.
The Oaks Club for a dance, disco kind of thing, probably.
Right. Yeah. So as the car's warming up, he leans over and gives her a kiss, and very, very similar to my shooting, same thing happened.
Yeah.
Their life kind of took a turn for the worse.
So once John realized that Christine was hit and she was in bad shape, he got out of the car. Actually, he propped her up into the seat, laid her head down on the driver's seat, and he ran up to the corner and to flag down. And,
it was an oncoming car.
Oncoming car. So a car was coming by, flagged them down, told them what happened, and they said that they would. There was no cell phones back then, so they said they would drive to the police station and let the cops know that a shooting had occurred.
Again, this is long before cell phones.
Cell phones.
So nobody's getting out and putting a quarter in the phone machine.
Probably was no payphone, and it was a dime then anyway.
Yeah, exactly. You're right.
To be exact,
I stand corrected.
What was crazy when we went down there and we walked and we did the little tour, the little video. There was kind of it was like that menacing kind of creepy thing that, wow, this happens here.
Yeah, I mean,
How
when
weird
you
was that?
when we were there, you could really envision how this
Yeah.
happened. He's parked in front of the train station, wants to warm up the car. We've
Yeah.
all done that in the wintertime in New York City, and leans over. The next thing you know, 3 shots are pumped into the car.
Yeah.
I mean, it had to be a total freak out moment. I mean,
Yeah.
but.
And the guy could have been hiding in the bushes then, because the bushes
Yeah.
must have been taller then.
Yeah.
You know, because
All indications from pictures that I've seen, I know that you've mentioned this, is that area was definitely more. I don't know the right word, but there were more shrubs, there were more bushes, there were more trees around at the time of the murders in Forest Hills, and I imagine that changed after that because it was probably good places to hide.
Yeah.
Maybe things weren't as well lit.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
According to newspaper reports, like the day after the shooting, and actually newspaper reports and news reports, they were talking to the residents, and they were saying that it's such a good neighborhood, but we've been complaining about low lighting and high bushes, and according to the newspaper article, again, I think they had the Civic Association, the president of the Civic Association, saying that they were like the next day they were on it, upgrading the lights, cutting down bushes.
Yeah.
So
immediately.
Almost immediately. Yeah.
Yeah. That place would have been easy to ambush somebody, like if you're hiding in the bushes, to
Yeah.
grab or just even mug people. It's
Well,
like,
you can still see, I mean, obviously there's still bushes there,
Yeah.
but I don't remember. I don't remember back then. I actually kind of hung out in that neighborhood 8-9 years later. My sister and my girlfriend worked at the Wine Gallery restaurant. I just don't recall what the neighborhood looked like. What I do recall is the neighborhood looks like it hasn't been changed.
It hasn't changed all that much.
Yeah, but I have to rely on the.
It's a historical neighborhood, so they don't really
Right.
change.
Right. So I have to rely on the newspaper articles saying how they cut down bushes and upgraded the lighting.
Right.
But you know what's funny? That neighborhood's kind of busy because you got the train station. You would think you would have a lot of foot traffic because that.
I think it
area
was less busy then.
less busy.
I have a feeling. I mean, Austin Street on the other side always had rows and rows of stores and stuff. But
bars.
once you got on the other side of the tracks there, the trestle, okay, now you're on the south side of the tracks. I think it was always pretty quiet, especially at 12:30 at night.
Yeah.
Okay. There was a Beefsteak Charlie's right there that I'm sure was closed for the evening already by that point.
Sure. And that's just to go along with that. The only retail on the north side, on the south side of the railroad tracks. I think there was only Beefsteak Charlie's was the only retail establishment. It was either the railroad tracks station, and then across the courtyard, Beefsteak Charlie's, which was connected to a bunch of Tudor style.
The Forest Hills Inn.
And then the Forest Hills Inn,
Right.
which is very unassuming even to this day. And I know that hasn't changed because I've seen photos from back in the 70s, and it doesn't even look like a hotel. It looks like
it's not anymore, but I think
Right.
at that point it might have still been.
Right.
I could be wrong. but I
it
think so.
basically just looks like an apartment building with a foyer.
You know, with this shooting, unfortunately, there were no witnesses and no sketch for the police to go by. Christine in the hospital, before she passed away, she did live a few more hours. But before she passed away, she was able to tell the police that they didn't, she didn't see anybody, and John Diel didn't see anybody either do it. The person just came out of nowhere. Who do you think did this? If you could make an honest guess.
Maury Terry says that this was a shooting. They brought somebody in from outside of New York.
Right.
Wow.
Manson 2.
Manson 2, right.
Manson 2 is
Right.
the nickname that Maury gave for the shooter. But that's we really don't know who Manson 2 is. There's some ideas of who it might be, but without any eyewitnesses, there was, like you said earlier, there's no police sketches. So,
Well, Carl, you did say that David Berkowitz was here. Didn't he have
was
an
spotted.
altercation with the?
So as with all the shootings, there was always 4 or 5 people. Obviously, the shooter, getaway cars, lookout, people surveilling the area. Supposedly, there was across the way. I don't know if you can see it in the shot. The Forest Hills Inn.
Right.
When John Diel was being questioned after the shooting, he said that there was, a shady character hanging out in front of there, and in retrospect, they kind of assumed it was one of the lookouts. The other interesting point is when John dropped Christine off in front of the movie theater, parked the car, and then walked back to the movie theater, and they decided to go to the wine gallery to have a drink before the movie. So when they were walking into the wine gallery, a gentleman was coming out, and they kind of bumped shoulders, and they apologized to each other. And at the time, John didn't think much of it, but after the arrest of David Berkowitz, he realized
he recognized him.
David Berkowitz was the guy he bumped into at the wine gallery.
The only real witness is somebody in the Forest Hills Inn, right, who saw a suspicious character, okay, but saw that character almost on the driver's side at the apex of the 2 roads where they came in.
Right.
Right. Now, I guess at that point, we don't know. It could have been more than one person there, or it could have just been that person.
And what we have to remember is, Berkowitz. I mean, some obviously in a case that's 45 years old and a lot of unanswered questions, there's a lot of assumptions we have to make based on the limited knowledge we have.
Yeah.
And one of the things that Berkowitz has never wavered from, that there was multiple people at every shooting. Mm-hmm. We already know he was there because Diel bumped into him. There's a good chance that I don't recall, but there is a good chance that the person that the doorman saw could have been Berkowitz just standing there being a lookout. It's not necessarily the shooter. We really don't know where the shooter came from. But at that hour, and with the foot traffic in that place, the suspicious-looking character picked up by the doorman was either the shooter or Berkowitz, or both. But again, going with the assumption more than one person was there. We just don't know where they were or who they were.
Okay. Let me ask you this, Carl. Now, this from a more personal perspective. This was the second shooting since your shooting. Okay, there was a third, and then this one happened.
Right.
What were you thinking at this time? Did you make any connections? I mean, because the police, I think after this one, there started to be an idea that there's a serial killer coming around. But what were you thinking? Did you think, this is very similar to what happened to me?
Yeah, believe it or not, the short answer is no, and there's a good reason for that. There was no indication. Directly after the fourth shooting, there was a small indication that there might be something going on. It wasn't really spoken about in the newspaper. And again, most of this is in retrospect. I've learned things since then, but at the time, no, because it really, there might have been an article or two saying, hey, there might be a serial killer. I'm not even sure if they use that term, serial killer, but there might be someone out shooting couples, But it was, if there was an article, it was a small article and one or two. It wasn't like the big news. That didn't happen for another. That didn't happen until March 10th.
Right. A couple more months.
Right.
And I guess to put it in perspective is, the city was overridden by crime. There were a lot of shootings. It was common to hear about
Well, that's the other
things
thing.
happening.
That's the other thing.
No internet, no 24/7 news cycle. So you probably could have lived in the next neighborhood over and not even know about it.
Yeah, the only reason, not the only reason, but the reason Forest Hills made such big news was because it was Forest Hills.
Yeah, because
it's a nice area.
fancy.
Yeah.
A lot of doctors,
And,
lawyers lived there, all that. Yeah.
Yeah, and the fact that person died always adds more credence to the story. And I liken it back to my shooting, because my shooting is very similar. Upscale neighborhood, a couple sitting in a car. Certainly not nearly as public as the Forest Hills, Diel Freund shooting. But I was wounded, and funny story. A good friend of mine, Marlon Hopkins, who was part of the Omega Task Force. He was detective, homicide detective in Queens, and the way things worked back then, and I guess still today, if you're on duty and you're a homicide cop, if there's a homicide, you go to the scene and you do what you do. Marlon was actually on duty that night, and I'm assuming he was the one that interviewed Diel. But as the case progressed and they formed the Omega Task Force, Marlon was assigned to that shooting. The funny story was when I was shot, he happened to be on duty, and being it's Queens, and Flushing's not that far from Forest Hills.
No.
Totally two different neighborhoods, separated by the Grand Central.
Yeah.
But not far at all. And he heard over the radio, gunshot to the head in Flushing, and he told me the story 3 years ago. But he walked into the emergency room. I'm laying on the gurney, getting worked on, getting the bone and shrapnel taken out of my head, and he asked the doctor, he goes, how's this guy doing? He goes, he's going to make it. So, well, I said, all right, see you later.
It's not
I walked
a
out.
homicide.
He wasn't interested. He was reluctant to tell me that story. But as of now, I got a kick out of it when he did tell me a story, because I don't know, I thought it was kind of funny. But he thought it was disrespectful, and I said, no, not at all. You're just doing your job.
He's
Anyway,
gonna make it?
I digress.
Damn,
Yeah.
damn. I got nothing to do.
No work here.
No work yet. No paperwork. Okay, so with that, we're going to take a break and be back for the next episode of Conspiracy 420, Son of Sam Chronicles with Carl Denaro. Thank you.